next week as it faces conservative opposition. He said the priority is to work with Congress on the legislation, but admitted the plan to repeal and replace Obamacare was going to require work.
We need every Republican in Congress, and we're counting on Kentucky.
The trip marks the beginning of a flurry of travel by White House officials who say there will be a, quote, full court press to sell the bill.
That's Catherine Faulders at the White House. AT&T says service is back to normal after a hardware issue prevented some customers' phone calls from connecting this morning. The company apologized, but it won't say how many people were affected. Set your clocks ahead an hour before you go to bed tonight. Daylight saving time returns to much of the nation at 2 a.m. tomorrow. You're listening to ABC News.
Hi, this is Lori Grenier. You've seen me on Shark Tank. If you're like me, you probably rely on your phone to get things done. So I know you'll want to hear about Cabbage's mobile app. Cabbage has created a simple way for business owners to get funding from their phones. Download the mobile app and you can complete the application in minutes and access funds anytime. Cabbage has provided over $2.5 billion in funding to 90,000 small businesses. Download the Cabbage app today or call 888-CABBAGE. That's Cabbage with a K, K-A-B-B-A-G-E.
Looks like some cable and phone companies are trying to sell home security. But when a burglar sees one of their signs in the front yard, what does it say? Oh, wow, this home has 599 channels. Or, oh, these guys have high-speed internet. But the ADT sign, it says, this family trusts the company whose name means security. So beat it. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes.
Learn more at ADT.com and to see licensing and terms and conditions.
Spring officially arrives a little over a week from now, but Old Man Winter is holding on until the end, especially across the Northeast.
Some very January-like cold is barreling down across much of the eastern half of the country. We've got a wind chill right now in New York City of 8 degrees, but it's -7 in Boston. That's what it feels like. Feels like 2 degrees in Pittsburgh and -2 in Green Bay. This in the wake of one of 3 snowmakers for the eastern half of the country.
ABC News senior meteorologist Rob Marciano. A call for help leading police to a suburban Atlanta home where 8 women were being held against their will.
The 911 call.
I'm in a very bad situation and I need to get out.
Police responding, getting to the home of Kendrick Roberts, freeing those 8 women. Sandy Springs Police Sergeant Sam Worsham saying Roberts recruited them through a sugar daddy matchmaker website and then allegedly forced them to dance in local strip clubs.
What we believe is that he was luring these women to this house, promises of either modeling careers or financial assistance when we're not 100% sure on that. The investigation is continuing.
Roberts arrested on charges of false imprisonment and human trafficking. Dave Packer, ABC News.
The California Department of Health is investigating some apparently toxic tea. Officials say the tea that was purchased from an herbalist in Chinatown in San Francisco contained the plant-based toxin aconite. 2 people are critically ill after drinking the tea. That toxin can be fatal. This is ABC News.
ABC Radio presents Career Course, brought to you by Indeed.com.
I'm ABC's chief business correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis, with 2 easy steps to building a team. Know yourself as a leader. Great managers know their strengths and weaknesses and hire those who can help fill in the gaps. And clearly define roles and celebrate success. It sounds simple, but making responsibilities clear and praising the wins is one of the most important steps to getting your team to work together.
Post your next job opening on the world's #1 job site, Indeed.com.
Daria Albinger, ABC News.
From the KMET Weather Center for Beaumont and the Pass area, we can expect a mostly sunny day. Our high 81 will have winds to 20 miles an hour. Overnight, it'll be partly cloudy with a low of 60. We'll have a sunny Sunday. Our high 83 with winds to 20 miles an hour. Sunday night, it'll be clear with a low of 59. Monday should be sunny and warmer with a high of 84. For Redlands today, we can expect mostly sunny skies and a high of 86. For Palm Springs, our Saturday looks mostly sunny. Our high 89. I'm Rod Tanner for Smart Talk 1490 KMET.
The Banning Beaumont Cherry Valley Tea Party meets every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. for informal breakfast and discussion. And they meet each month on the second Thursday at 5 p.m., all at the Farms House Restaurant in Banning. Listen to interesting speakers, learn about our Constitution with our free classes, enjoy friendly discussions, and informal dining. Come join us. For more information, call Glenn Stoll, 951-316-3843.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
Welcome back, Constitutional Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Top of the second hour. Time for a lot more right here on the radio program. If you would like to call in, 951-922-3532. Feel free to call in. We love callers, 951-922-3532. In the studio with me is Dennis Jackson. He is the executive director of Enemies Within Movie and the owner of, the CEO of Bravas Corp. Is that the right way of saying it?
No, CEO, owner. I'm a one-man corporation. So yes,
one-man
that's
corporation.
True. That's right.
And Kurt Nordahl couldn't make it with us. He's the author of What Pisses Me Off About the Good Old USA, and also his business that was is going to be advertised during the next break. And for some reason now I'm forgetting the name of the business. 360 Franchise Experts 360. Thank you. I knew I'd figure it out eventually. Franchise Experts 360. Check out the ads later on. Learn more about what he does. Dennis and Kurt are the sponsors of the second hour. They're the ones that make sure the second hour is here. So please give their efforts or their causes a visit. Enemies Within Movie, enemieswithinmovie.com, and franchiseexperts.com. franchiseexperts360.com. Okay. Here's the thing that's been going on real quick, and I want to do this before we get to Alex. Did you hear about the Day Without Women, the Women's Day March, all that jazz?
Yeah.
Because we've had the Day Without Immigrants. They want to prove that Day Without Women would be catastrophic, and it wasn't. I watched a couple videos from Liz Wheeler from One America News, and she had some very good points. She says, what are we teaching the young girls? That when you don't get your way, you don't show up to work? And if they really want to stand up for women's rights, how about the millions of girls that are killed while still in the womb? Are they going to stand up for their rights?
Yeah, but those aren't real women.
And they say that they hate Trump because he's a sexist, but yet they preferred Hillary Clinton, who is married to a rapist.
Well, and if you look at Hillary and if you look at Obama and his White House and look at what the pay scale is for the women working for them, it's the same disparity that the Democrats complain about. And then if you look at Trump, you'll find out that he has some very high-paid and very well-placed women in his organization. So he does far better for hiring women and treating them.
Theirs is a problem looking for a cause. They've created this problem that they say exists, but where is it? Name me another country in the world in which women have more rights than in the United States.
American women are the most privileged, powerful women on earth. And the point to me is, if you're looking for a clue as to what they're up to, you never hear them complain about Islamic nations and what they do to their women.
Right.
This clitorectomy that they do to these women, the women have no choice in it. It's done to them when they're little,
right.
and it ruins their entire life. And yet these Democrats, these women's rights people, are blind to that. They don't want to hear it. They won't discuss it when you meet them in the street.
And Liz Wheeler is a great example. You got this 26-year-old girl, and I just looked her up a minute ago, and her accomplishments are amazing. She's not only has a successful television program on One America News, she's the youngest person to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals in her hometown in Ohio. She ran her own consulting business. She's helped veterans connect with jobs. She just, matter of fact, won the Red Alert Politics 30 Under 30. I mean, this is would this have been possible in any other place in the world? But yet these women marchers act like this is the 1910s.
Well, I would love to see all those that are protesting for all the unfairness in this country and laud, such as. Case in point, we in the movie Enemies Within, we had a good section on Bernie, and there was also a section on Hillary. But when they laud these other countries, especially Bernie, why are they here? Why are all the people from the countries that supposedly are better countries, they're socialist more in nature, why are they fleeing those countries and coming to ours?
Right.
Why do we have a problem with the southern border? And why are the people leaving, the Middle East and fleeing going into Europe? Why is there a immigration problem of outbound people out of these other countries? Why don't we just look at, maybe we ought to fix the problem in those countries. Maybe Mexico ought to fix their economy. Get rid of the monopolies down there so people can start businesses and have a little bit of fair competition.
Well, and here's what's fascinating about all this. If you look around the world, the countries with the greatest women's rights in the world are countries based on Christian or Judeo principles. But yet, aren't those the very principles and belief systems that the left rails about the most? Rails against, should I say?
Well,
they rail against Christian and Judeo principles, but yet they're marching. How there's no women's rights in these Judeo-Christian countries?
Well, you and I had a conversation, I believe, in the last week about the safest country in the Middle East for Muslims.
Right.
Is what country?
Israel.
Well, son of a gun. Why is that? Well, because everybody can vote. They have law and order. They do have, like you say, a Judeo-Christian thing where, people are treated based upon citizenship and law, not on race or on religion. And all these people want to come to the U.S. and change the U.S. to be like whatever country they came from. Well, if they were successful, which is really what they're trying to do, Obama and all the rest trying to overthrow the Constitution and change it to where we become more like a socialist country, then where is the haven? Where is the light on the hill? Where is the place that
we
people
are the
can
shining
go to?
beacon on the hill, and they want to extinguish that light so that we're like everybody else.
And then
the point of the founding fathers, the whole point of this system was to be unlike anything that exists. We don't want to be like everybody else.
Hence the word exceptional. Exceptional based because we are the exception. Not that we are necessarily exceptional to where we ought to brag about how good we are, but we're different. We are exceptional.
We're the exception to the rule.
We broke away, and what we did, the rest of the world sat there and laughed, saying they can't win the war. And then after the war, well, they can't survive. They'll cannibalize themselves. Human nature will kick in. But the Constitution was put away to change or to chain the powers of human nature by separating everything out and putting all these balances in.
Right.
And it has worked. And now what the enemies are trying to do is to knock those foundation parts apart. And if they do that, then the U.S. will sink into the calamity that you're finding in most of the other nations on Earth.
Well, let's talk. Speaking of exceptional and magnificent, if you have an exceptional or magnificent opinion, 951-922-3532. But I also want to lob the ball over the net over to Alex because he's been working on a new book, and he would love to talk about it. I can hear him chomping at the bit all the way through the phone line here. Alex, what have you been reading? Give the name of the book and the author, and tell us what you've got so far for us.
Okay. In the meantime, I would like to mention that the one thing we haven't dealt with is the problem of government unions. FDR is famously against the idea of government unions.
It's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, Rush Limbaugh calls them a money laundering machine.
Well, absolutely.
The members of the union, whether they're Republican or Democrat, pay in their dues. The union gives the dues to the Democrats. The Democrats raise their pay and increase their insularity so that nobody can hold them accountable. And it's incestuous, and it's got to be stopped. The SEIU is destroying the United States of America. And
well, there's another swamp to talk about, the union swamp, but. And that's actually a great point. And I mean,
well, and I just had a discussion with that same topic this morning.
Right.
And a guy came up to me, and he was a union member. Matter of fact, there were two union members in the group, and one of them mentioned the fact that the problem is, they're in voting I twisted it around to say, in effect, what you're saying is they have to vote the way the union wants them to vote for what Alex was talking about, for their financial benefit. And I said, well, what they need to do is they need to vote what's best for their children and grandchildren, the cause of liberty.
Well,
than
and
voting
the thing
for their
is, the
paycheck
unions
for the
are
next
no
10
longer
weeks.
about what's best for the workers anyway.
That's exactly right.
It's about what's best for the union. It's like the teachers' union is not about what's best for the children's education.
Well, I don't even know if it's what's best for the union, because if SEIU and these socialist unions, continue to do what they're doing to the country's going to go down.
Well,
and being a member of a union isn't going to.
Well, it's not just that. But they push and they push and they push for these unsustainable pension plans that eventually destroys the very industry or company that they represent, and that's just not government unions. That's all unions that do this, private unions as well. But it's an interesting topic, and I get it when it comes to people who support unions. I get it. You want to make sure that everything's on the up and up, and you're not being cheated and all that. And trust me, and I really can't go into it, but I know more than most what it's like to go up against a very strong and money-wielding employer and get burned for it. I get it, but aren't there laws in places? And also, you don't like these industries or these businesses, don't buy their products, don't work for them. I mean, there are other ways. I'm not poo-pooing the existence of unions, but I am recognizing that unions are not what they were originally intended to be. First of all. Second of all, unions draw their foundation from Marxist ideology. But that all said, before we run out of time here.
I'm saying that while we have a Republican majority in all the centers of power, we should do something about this funding of the left.
Well, you need someone with the cojones of Scott Walker to do that. So, and also the understanding that Scott Walker had. So here's my question: is Scott Walker talking to the Trump administration? I've actually heard a rumor they are.
Well, I surely hope so. One provision,
could
be that the union cannot, and we've had this initiative in California a couple times, and the unions brought in enough outsiders and outside money that they defeated it.
Right.
But we need to get a law that says that the union cannot take all the money from all the members of the union and give it to the Democrats. That they just can't do that anymore. It's completely irrational for a free society to require that people give money to their own enemies.
Well, the thing is, though, is you have a public that believes all of the things about what we're being told, and when it comes to the unions, it believes the garbage, don't understand that it's a money laundering racket because of the media. We can call it the media swamp, so to speak. I mean, that's something that I've talked about. And anytime someone like you and I and, anybody who's on the right side of things even criticizes the media, we're attacked. Just recently, though, Nancy Pelosi questioned the media, and they were silent about it. Did you hear about that? The media's been all over Trump for criticizing the media, but Nancy Pelosi, the lead Democrat in the House of Representatives from the district in San Francisco, launched her own attack against the press. And the attack provoked little outrage from reporters. She accused the press of acting as an accomplice in Russia's rumored but still not proven undermining of the 2016 presidential election. She told Jake Tapper from CNN, "I do think, with all due respect in the world for the press, that the press could have done a better job highlighting Russia's alleged meddling in the election." Well, this same press that she's attacking, they're the ones that's also putting out the false narrative regarding unions and everything else. But yet, if we say that, we're attacked for it. How dare we question the wonderful free press?
Well, the irony...
Someone like Pelosi does, though, and they're silent.
Well, the irony here is, and Pelosi knows this very well, and just lying through her teeth, the The investigations that we've heard about, and you've heard about them as well, they haven't found any wrongdoing. They haven't found any connection.
Well, it goes against common sense,
I know.
actually.
So it is a fake news issue, but they keep trying to stick the Russia connection to Trump and the Republicans, when in truth, the communist infiltration of the unions and the unions support of the Democrats, it's the Russians that are supporting, communist-wise, the Democratic Party.
Well, you've got
you got Sanders, who was supported mainly through the Democratic Socialists of America, and then you had the DNC colluding to keep him out. But if the communist roots are alive anywhere, which they are in this country, it's in the Democratic Party, and they're the ones saying that Putin's a bad guy. It was Obama that sat there and talked to Medvedev off mic, and you remember this. He's saying, I'll have more flexibility to deal with you guys after the election. Tell Vladimir, we're with him.
Well, first of all, the media is not about common sense. They're about a narrative. They're about protecting the narrative, protecting the agenda, protecting whatever the progressive direction they want to go in is. It's just like when it came to...
When you say progressive, you ought to go ahead and say progressive, socialist, communist, because it's all the same deal.
And
that's what Pelosi
the liberal left, Democrat Party, progressive, socialist, commie bastards.
And that's what Pelosi and that's what Feinstein have been stepped with all this time.
Well, it's like, when we get back to the media, too, it's like with their reporting on WikiLeaks and the quote-unquote stolen emails. And the Democrat Party's biggest complaint is, well, gosh, they shouldn't have reported on the content of the emails. Should have been reporting on how wrong it was to get them in the first place. Well, it was the content of the emails that showed who really was the criminal and who really was siding with Russia and all that. But see, they want to hide that. It's amazing. You know what? We're on a break now, so we're going to have Alex talk about his book report after this break. And after this break, along with his book report, we also have, we're talking about the wiretapping and immigration as well. All of that after the break. Don't go anywhere. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
Tired of working for others? Want to regain your freedom and flexibility in life? Want to invest in a successful business model with proven results and unlimited earning potential? Then Franchise Experts 360 can change your life. Franchise Experts 360 is a franchise consulting firm. Franchise Experts 360 represents 400-plus franchisors from all different industries. Franchise Experts 360 will work with you to find the franchise business model that fits your budget and lifestyle. Whether you're looking for a home-based retail, mobile service, direct ownership, or absentee ownership business model, Franchise Experts 360 has a franchise that's right for you. Visit franchiseexperts360.com. That's franchiseexperts360.com to contact our office. Our Franchise Experts 360 consulting services are at no cost to our clients. That's right, no cost, as we are paid by the franchisors. Change your life, invest into yourself, grow a successful business model, and live the American dream. Franchise Experts 360 is your key to success. Contact franchiseexperts360.com. The second hour of Constitution Radio is partly brought to you by the Bravis Corporation and the new documentary film, Enemies Within, based on the book of the same name by Trevor Loudon. I have personally viewed this movie and have met and interviewed the author, Trevor Loudon, and if everyone in this country saw this film and took the time to understand and apply its important message, this country would immediately begin to solve its problems, and its future would dramatically change for the better. This movie rips the mask off of over 100 members of Congress who are under the control of socialists, communists, and the Muslim Brotherhood who are violating their oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States. They are actually working to undermine the Constitution of this country and to restrict the liberties of all Americans. In fact, based on their known associations, these members of Congress could not even pass a standard FBI background check to get a job in the local post office. And here they are in the halls of government. I encourage everyone to see this movie. It is available at enemieswithinmovie.com. You can rent it or buy it. Go to enemieswithinmovie.com and get your copy today. And then tell your friends. If you really want to understand why the Democrats do what they are doing, you need to know their masters. Learn who their masters are by going to enemieswithinmovie.com.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, KMET 1490 AM. All right, Alex, before we get any further and we start talking about other stuff, let's get your book report in. What book are you working on right now?
Okay, the review is of After Long Silence by Michael Straight.
Yeah, I remember you telling us last week, this is a book that not a lot of people know exists. Just give the name of the book, the title of the book, and the author again.
It's called After Long Silence, and it's easy reading. He can write. He should be able to write. He was the editor of the New Republic.
Mm-hmm. What was the name of the author again?
Michael Straight.
Okay.
His parents founded the New Republic. He was the editor of the New Republic, and he was a major figure in the anti-McCarthyism movement. The only problem being that he was, in fact, at that time, an agent of Stalin, and Stalin was calling the shots. Stalin told him he didn't have a right to resign. He had to join the FDR administration. The problem with that is that as I go through these various scenes and conversations that he has with these people in history, it becomes more and more clear that the New Deal considered Soviet espionage to be of little importance.
Right.
FDR was warned repeatedly that members of his cabinet, members of his entourage were Soviet agents, and I don't want to use the term he used because it's a little it would throw us off the air. But
what again? I want to ask you one more time because I was looking it up for my own personal. After Long Silence, name of the author one more time.
Michael Straight, Straight.
Oh, okay. Now, language that we can't say on the radio, but this book.
He wanted him
it originally was published in '83. That's what I'm getting. Go a little more. Sorry.
Well, the point is that this guy was involved in all these upper echelon groups. He was part of the establishment.
He was a communist, right? He was a
hardcore communist because Cambridge University at that time was run by communists.
Okay.
And he says so.
At that time?
Well, a good retort, yes. The point is that I was just reading a section where he says he had breakfast with the Roosevelts, and he didn't have a rating, a civil service rating, but they just put him in a job. This is like Hillary not being held accountable. He was,
matter of fact, he was a speechwriter for Franklin Delano Roosevelt at one point too, wasn't he?
That is correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a Stalin agent writing the speeches for Roosevelt, in which, on and on. The point is that I've talked a lot about this schizoid brain function we get in leftists, that they can hold two completely contradictory propositions in their mind simultaneously without any cognitive dissonance. It doesn't bother them.
Well, in fact, they'll somehow figure out a way to reason their connection, even though there's no connection possible.
Yeah. An example is Strait goes on a tour of Russia in 1935, and on the tour, he's aroused one night by gunfire. The train lurched to a halt. The gunfire continued. We made our way to the end of the coach. We saw huddled against the iron steps a dozen half-starved children. They had boarded the train in the darkness, and the guards were firing their rifles to drive them off. Now, if that had happened in the United States, imagine how his reaction is that he felt guilty about taking 2 lumps of sugar in his tea because it might strain the financial reserves of the new socialist state.
Right.
Now, there are intellectual arguments going on in this book that are rather hard to follow, but he gives us an example. He says Keynes said that Marxism was even lower than social credit on an economic economic concept. It was complicated hocus pocus, the only value of which was its muddle-headedness. He had read Marx, he said, as if it were a detective story, trying to find some clue to an idea and never succeeding. So he says, right after that, he says, sadly, in those days, I separated my head from my heart. Well, that figures, considering that the members of the espionage team at Cambridge were constantly having trouble with their control agents being recalled to Moscow, taken down the basement of the Lubyanka prison, and having their brains blown out. It was obvious to everybody what was going on, and yet they did not process the information in any substantive way. All this time, of course, he's talking to his mother by mail,
right?
And she's just as happy as she can be that he's involving himself in Soviet espionage. He talks about, he says, most of my friends, I came to realize, were or had been homosexuals. As Guy Burgess, was an exhibitionist. Anthony, in contrast, was wholly discreet. Dennis, I suspected, who had been deeply and unhappily in love with other men. Keynes himself had been the lover of the painter Duncan Grant. A fellow radical had revealed his obsessive love for choir boys. A rosy-cheeked boy of 11 was sitting on his sofa. My friend kept nodding to me as if to say, "Isn't he beautiful?" Now, he goes on periodically. You come across that the French delegation they ended up having orgies in this bar, homosexual orgies. It's hard to imagine. Well, you can't imagine. I suppose I should. Well, getting back to the subject, one of the economists at Cambridge was talking about Marx's theory of the falling rate of profit.
Right.
And he says himself, I said, had assumed that the productivity of labor was a fixed element in his equation, whereas in fact it was a variable. I came up with the same kind of analysis on the surplus theory of value. These various signposts that Marx set up on the path to socialism are wrong directions. They're incorrect. They don't make any sense. And yet the people that call themselves Marxists, as far as I can tell, I've known a lot of them, they pride themselves on being able to understand what Marx said.
Mm-hmm.
But they haven't got enough brains to realize how wrong he was. They only went halfway to enlightenment. So Anthony Blunt, who is, see, the problem is that they don't teach this stuff in schools. So you don't recognize these names. Anthony Blunt was enormous in Soviet espionage back in the World War II era. He became Queen Elizabeth's art historian. He met with her, probably at least once a week for decades. And then it comes out, by the way, he's been running a Soviet espionage effort here for the entire time. He tells straight that he has to pretend to not be a communist anymore, to take the death of one of his friends in Spain and use that as an excuse for breaking with the communists, and then he can go to his sinecure in Washington.
Right.
By the by, he refers to Democratic government officials. Government officials were in the habit of paying reporters to write favorable stories about them. Now, that sounds a lot like walk-around money to me. When elections come up in the South, or almost anywhere in the United States, the Democrats send precinct workers out with money, and they give it to the ministers and the churches to preach against Republicans.
Right.
This is well known. It's well documented. Everybody knows it happens, but we don't talk about that. It's pretty weird. His control agent was recalled to Moscow, a guy named Michael Green, and got his brains blown out. He told him, "I'll be working for Secretary Ickes. He is to be appointed Secretary of War. When he moves over to the War Department, I'll move over with him." He also says that Roosevelt had little knowledge of international affairs and not much feeling for military matters. So he was a naive presence in the company of wolves. In 1939, the Germans and the Russians signed the Nazi-Stalin Pact, and he had to change from being aggressively against Hitler. He had to change to be against war. This is where the peace movement comes in, and he says here, this is one of the participants. Straight says that the communist parties were doing all they could to undermine the Allied war effort. Let's see, Green vanished in 1942. It says, many, if not, this is a quote, many, if not most of the Soviet agents who were abroad in 1939 were recalled in the same manner. Then they were summarily tried and executed on Stalin's orders. Stalin was an absolute homicidal maniac. He killed people. It was his first option, as far as he was concerned.
Well, he was paranoid that they would try to dislodge him. So anybody that had any intelligence, any understanding, any slight amount of power, degrees, professionals, all of them, anybody got close to him. In the beginning, it was a smaller group, but it just got more and more widespread as he became more paranoid.
Well, it says here, here's another quote. I turned to another assignment, helping Mrs. Roosevelt as she struggled to maintain the ties between the administration and the radicals in America. The American Youth Congress was the organization with which Mrs. Roosevelt was allied, a communist caucus working undercover and in many guises was able to manipulate the Congress in ways that Mrs. Roosevelt could never comprehend.
Yeah, we're at the end of your time here, so I want you to give a final sentence here just to wrap it all up for us.
Okay, like everybody else, Straight was shocked when in 1941 Hitler attacked Stalin attacked Russia in Operation Barbarossa. The point being that Stalin never betrayed Hitler. Stalin never turned on Hitler until he was faced with open warfare. He considered Hitler to be a soulmate. And these people that run around L.A. talking about Marxist-Leninism, and I'm thinking, don't they understand that is the opposite of everything they claim to believe in? It's the same mental schizoid routine that we encounter with these people all the time.
Well, now let's take what you've been talking about and take it a step further into what our next topic is anyway, about the bugging and all that. When during the election, the Democrats came up with the narrative that the Russians want Trump to win, and they are doing whatever they can to rig the election to make it so, and that Trump is somehow in cahoots with that, it defied logic. Because and Russia, the communists, so on and so forth, they're still infiltrating. They have infiltrated. They're still trying to influence, but they don't want someone like Trump who's going to be big on national security. In fact, the Russians absolutely loved having Obama in office because, South Ossetia, Crimea, Ukraine, you name it, new base on an island in the Mediterranean. The Russians, Putin got everything he wanted with a Democrat. And so it defies logic what the accusation was. But I think I understand why the Russian accusation, or the accusation that the Russians were trying to intrude into our election was even created. It was a cover-up. I think it was trying to cover up the fact that the Democrats were wiretapping Trump. That way, if they did get caught, to avoid a Watergate scenario, in case it was found out, they could simply say, well, hey, this was national security. We were trying to guard against Russian influence on our election. So the plan was wiretap the Republicans and Trump in a Watergate style. But if for some reason it's found out, someone talks or something, no problem. Just point fingers that the GOP and Russia were in cahoots with each other. And they didn't have a choice for national security. They had to wiretap. What do you think?
I think that the Obama administration never had any intention of following the law. They never worried about...
Well, because the ends justify the means, right?
Absolutely. And the laws that are in place were put in place by white male oligarchs, and therefore they don't count. So he had no compunctions about any activity, whether it was selling 2,000 high-powered firearms to the Mexican narco-traficantes, or using the IRS to suppress the Tea Party movement. Whatever it was, he figured he had enough allies in the press, in the colleges, in the Congress that he could overcome it. The thing that shocked Obama was that Trump won. He had it all
well,
set up.
Shocked everybody except for you and I, my friend.
Well, the difference is that he stands to suffer some injury in that all the crimes that he assumed the Clinton administration would cover up are exposed to the light of day. And he's got to stay in Washington. He's got to try to keep a lid on that. He's bound to be on the phone most of his waking moments, trying to get people to destroy evidence and cover up wrongdoing. But like I say, this is our last chance. Not only do we have to pass a law that you can only have one topic per law, not only do we have to end the union funding.
Get rid of earmarks, get rid of all of this, omnibus bills and things like that, and then everything has to stand on its own.
And we have to make criminal investigations into this Obama regime.
Right.
Because it was a criminal organization.
Organizing for America and all that, which the Organizing for America, remains to be a very powerful machine. Never mind the Clinton Foundation. We got to deal with the OFA. All right, we got to go to break like 5 minutes ago. So let's go to break. When we come back, we got immigration still to talk about and a few things that have been said and a conversation I had actually with a few people yesterday morning while I was down in San Diego at a meeting with a bunch of pastors regarding my efforts regarding the Congress of Racial Equality. I can't wait to tell you about the conversation and more about the swamp that we are encountering after this break.
Tired of working for others? Want to regain your freedom and flexibility in life? Want to invest in a successful business model with proven results and unlimited earning potential? Then Franchise Experts 360 can change your life. Franchise Experts 360 is a franchise consulting firm. Franchise Experts 360 represents 400 plus franchisors from all different industries. Franchise Experts 360 will work with you to find the franchise business model that fits your budget and lifestyle. Whether you're looking for a home-based retail, mobile service, direct ownership, or absentee ownership business model, Franchise Experts 360 has a franchise that's right for you. Visit franchiseexperts360.com. That's franchiseexperts360.com to contact our office. Our Franchise Experts 360 consulting services are at no cost to our clients. That's right, no cost, as we are paid by the franchisors. Change your life, invest into yourself, grow a successful business model, and live the American dream. Franchise Experts 360 is your key to success. Contact franchiseexperts360.com. The second hour of Constitution Radio is partly brought to you by the Bravas Corporation and the new documentary film, Enemies Within, based on the book of the same name by Trevor Loudon. I have personally viewed this movie and have met and interviewed the author, Trevor Loudon, and if everyone in this country saw this film and took the time to understand and apply its important message, this country would immediately begin to solve its problems and its future would dramatically change for the better. This movie rips the mask off of over 100 members of Congress who are under the control of socialists, communists, and the Muslim Brotherhood who are violating their oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States. They are actually working to undermine the Constitution of this country and to restrict the liberties of all Americans. In fact, based on their known associations, these members of Congress could not even pass a standard FBI background check to get a job in the local post office. And here they are in the halls of government. I encourage everyone to see this movie. It is available at enemieswithinmovie.com. You can rent it or buy it. Go to enemieswithinmovie.com and get your copy today, and then tell your friends. If you really want to understand why the Democrats do what they are doing, you need to know their masters. Learn who their masters are by going to enemieswithinmovie.com. Help me fight the good fight. This radio program is funded by advertising dollars. So, if you are a business, add Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs to your business portfolio. If you are a listener, become a patron of the businesses advertising on this program. Without advertising, your weekend dose of truth ends. With more advertising, Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs grows, and we will be on the way to win the battle to restore the Republic. To learn more, email us at constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com or visit douglasvgibbs.com.
And now, back to our program.
Welcome back. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs here on KMET 1490 AM. Final segment of the final hour. That's nice to be able to say that. 2 hours of this program. And I actually I've had a few listeners that I've bumped into say, first of all, even after the 2 hours at the end, I'm going, gosh, that's it. I wish there was more. And second, another one told me, he says, Doug, since you guys went to 2 hours, the show's gotten better, and it's getting better every week. But then again, Alex, have you not noticed since you've been working with me that every show gets better each time we do one?
That has been the pattern of this show since I joined it. It just keeps getting better and better and better.
That's because we've got great people like you and Dennis Jackson on board, and we've got plenty to talk about. That's one thing about the liberal left Democrats is they give us plenty to talk about. It's if it wasn't so serious, it would be entertaining to watch them. Now, when Trump first burst onto the political scene, it was because of his tough talk on immigration, and more specifically, illegal aliens. He called for the building of a border wall. Then when people said, well, how's he get paid? He says, well, Mexico's going to pay for it. He called my wife, who's a legal immigrant from Mexico. She was talking about a wall before Trump was. My wife came here from Mexico as a child, legally, grew up in American schools, naturalized in 2007. And she's angrier about the illegal alien problem than I am. And the moment Donald J. Trump mentioned wanting to secure the border in such a way with a wall, my wife, first words out of her mouth, that's my guy. Now, I was a Scott Walker supporter at that point, but for someone like my wife, illegal entry into the United States being treated in a manner other than the crime that it is a slap in her face. Think about this. We've got sanctuary cities. California wants to become a sanctuary state. That means that they are indicating they want to harbor federal fugitives. Think about that. It's a federal crime to cross the border illegally, and the state of California wants to become a sanctuary state. In other words, we want to become a state, according to our politicians, that harbors federal fugitives. Felony. That's beyond a felony. That's treason. Now, why should anybody be able to break the law and not be subject to an immigration process designed to protect the receiving population? I mean, I get it. I totally get it, man. If I lived somewhere else, I'd want to be here. I totally understand. It's like I was talking to a woman at a meeting yesterday down in San Diego, this pastor's meeting, and she says, well, doesn't it bother you that Mr. Trump was to just ban everybody from coming to the country? So he doesn't want to just ban everybody, but it's like with his travel ban, he may have jumped the gun a little bit and had to issue a second one where it made exempt, green card holders and those having visas and things like that. But think about it this way, and some of you have heard this, but I'm going to take it a little further. You got a bowl full of M&Ms. 3 of them are in there poison and they could kill you. Are you going to reach in with a handful of M&Ms, start eating those suckers? No, because there's 3 poison M&Ms in there. Now, does that mean you toss out all the M&Ms? No, you want to figure out which M&Ms are poison, get rid of those 3 poison M&Ms, and hey, you can eat the rest of them. The rest of them are good. Let them in. But you have to come up with a process that is so thorough you can find which 3 M&Ms are poison and determine that for sure you got all of the poison M&Ms. Otherwise, you're not going to eat any of them. Same thing with the immigration. I get it. There's families who want to come here. There's people who are in very tough. I totally understand. But I want to protect the receiving population from disease, from potential terrorists, from for those who have engaged in criminal activity, those who might be members or associated with a drug cartel, and so on and so forth. I want that extreme vetting. I don't want to grab a scoop full of M&Ms until I'm positive there's no poison in there. That's what the process is for. It's not to be insensitive. It's not to be racist, even though it's not racist. It's only one race, human race. It is to make sure that the receiving population is protected. And why should anybody, once again, be able to break the law and not be subject to an immigration process designed to protect the receiving population? How is that kind of cutting in line fair to someone like my wife who, even after coming here as a child, when her parents immigrated here and legally grew up in this country, had to go through a 3-year process as an adult before being granted citizenship? We got illegal aliens being treated with a red carpet, yet I've got a cousin, it took him 10 years to get his Japanese wife into this country. So is the problem solved by just letting illegal immigrants in, or is the problem solved by fixing the immigration system, not to make it easier for them to come in the sense of not using any extreme vetting, but that once they get past that extreme vetting, to make it more efficient so that they can become Americans or come here legally. The illegal aliens are getting benefits up to the neck that they didn't even contribute to. Mexico has a sealed southern border with razor wire, armed guards, and guard towers. And as Trump's presidency approached in January after the inauguration, illegal immigration has actually plummeted. His tough talk has actually done the job. The illegal crossings in January of 2017 was at its lowest for that month since January of 2012. The less captured, the less crossing. So the number's going down. Of course, I also believe the best way to do is just quit giving them free stuff. Final words.
Yeah, I've always followed the dictum, follow the money.
Right.
And in this case, we just last night on TV, they did a show on American children who are dying from opium, from heroin, from these drugs that are pouring across the border. And I'm saying that a regime that allowed 2,000 high-powered weapons to go to the narcotraficantes and has been adamant about keeping that border wide open, somebody's getting paid off. I'm going to say that again. Somebody in the Obama administration is making big money because that's all the narcotraficantes have. They got dope and they got money. And they say, well, everybody's got a price. They got the price.
Well, let me throw one other little angle here, and I can't remember the person's name. But again, going back to the movie Enemies Within, he is identified. He is the #1 advisor on immigration affairs to Obama. He spoke several years ago to a group similar to La Raza, and he's talking about the #1 priority, is comprehensive immigration reform, to legalize those that are here and to keep the open borders. And when he spoke, you hear all the bleeding heart stuff, the things about families and work and opportunity. Well, when he spoke, he never mentioned families. He never mentioned, any of those better virtues. His sole point of getting this done, he says, because if we do this and we get them the power to vote, he says, we will own. This will be a one-party country. We will own the White House. We will own the powers or the halls of power, not just for this election and the next generation or in the next election, but for generations to come. This whole thing is about taking control of the government, and the money is there to help them come in and all the rest. But the people behind this, truly, at the highest levels, they know it's a power play to get people across because they know 70% or more will register as Democrats. And if they can get another 10, 20 million people, they'll own the White House, the Congress, and the rest of us won't have a chance.
The Democrats thought they had turned the corner, that this country had turned the left corner and that they had finally won this whole thing. They were so stunned when Trump won it. They can't believe they're the minority party at the moment, and they're willing to do anything to get the job done, to finish it. What we are seeing is a revolution, a coup, a silent coup that most people don't even realize is in process.
Yeah, the voting fraud and all the rest that's going on is just incredible. They are stealing the country away from those.
They're trying. And we need to be active. If we're doing our job, doesn't matter who's in the White House. We need to do our job. Okay, we're out of time. Alex, plug yourself.
ConservativeCannonade.org. I'm telling you, you can't miss.
Go to enemieswithinmovie.com and find out what really powers the Democratic Party.
I am Douglas V. Gibbs. Thank you for listening. DouglasVGibbs.com, politicalpistachio.com. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, and God bless you. We'll see you next week.